Okay. Am I back? Not sure what happened. We have really bad storms here in our community right at the moment. I left 20 minutes ago. Yeah, I'm sure you did. Yeah, story of my life. So, anyways, pervasiveness. Everything I do is bad, and I can't do anything right. So, in other words, no matter how much you have this belief that no matter how much I practice at, in this case, PUBG, as we're talking about, you lose the ability to even give yourself the time and space to get better, to get out of this mindset that I can't. You understand what I'm saying to you? So your capacity automatically, because you have this thing called pervasiveness, where you just automatically think that I'm not good enough. We see this in weightlifting or exercising all the time. Yeah, no problem. I'll wait to do your push-ups till you get back. Because very often people will go to the gym and they think they're supposed to be benching 400 pounds in the first week, and then they show up for a week, and then suddenly I'm not doing it. So then I must not be able to do it. I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not strong enough, so therefore I don't have the capacity. I'm not whatever. The idea there is very often people give up before they've had any chance at success. Now picture in the case of Rise Above, where you have a group of kids who historically have been told that they are not doing it properly. That whatever it is that they have been held accountable for, that they no longer see themselves as having the capacity to then do anything but be bad at school, or be bad at taking tests, or be bad personally. Like my behavior, I'm just a bad kid. And that's a challenge for some people to get over. And that leads into the next part, where it's called performance. We talk about this aspect of, so you got personalization, you have pervasiveness, and then you've got performance, where I don't feel like it will ever stop or go away. In other words, if I have behavioral issues where in certain situations I respond a certain way, you start to say things like, well, that's just the way I am. Well, you don't understand because you're not me. Well, there's truth to that, where we don't know what it's like to be you. But at the end of the day, the thought that you may or may not have that, it's never going to change because that's just the way you are. That's where your capacity automatically gets limited. That's where you turn into this, where I can never exceed the capacity of this because I've said I can't. The beauty of being us is we have the ability to control our capacity. We have the ability to say, oh, this is going to stop. This absolutely is going to change today. I no longer am going to do that. Or I am no longer going to settle for this. We have the ability at any time to say to ourselves, I'm going to do it differently today. So, have you ever been willing to do uncomfortable things? Question, very important question. Because in order for growth in capacity to happen, you have to do things that are what I would call stretching. You have to do things that push you beyond limits that you typically set for yourself. Are you guys still there? Somebody say something in chat if anyone's there. Because I have a feeling I'm talking to myself. Okay, good. Because you've got, so OG, since you're still here, this idea of doing things that are uncomfortable. The reality is you have to be willing every day. Yeah, no worries. I just want to know I'm not talking to myself. I got to go through all this stuff and then realize that the stream ended 4 hours ago. You have to do things that are painful very often to increase capacity. You have to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's this idea of being willing to step into back up one step. Where does this topic come from? Why is Neil talking about this today? Because I am in a capacity building phase of my life. For the past 5 years, well, longer than that, past 9 years, I have been in a extremely difficult, very what I would call stretching time of my life. Prior to that, the probably 10, 15 years prior to that, I was very comfortable. I was always in a place where I was the expert. I was always in a place where I was the go-to, where, hey, we need something done, let's grab Neil and he'll get it done. Since moving to the U.S., it's been the exact opposite. Now, I've had a lot of success, but that is because I don't have a personalization issue, I don't have a pervasiveness issue, and I don't have a performance issue. I'm willing to step into uncomfortable places and do uncomfortable things. And there are these seasons these past 9 years where I've gone through these really high points where, you know, I'm stepping into places where I'm like, yeah, I can see the finish line. I can see the benefit to this. And then there's other places where I'm at these really deep valleys where I'm saying to myself, what the heck are we doing? Is this even where we're supposed to be going? Am I the right person? And this was just this year and a half ago, 2 years ago. I had this very serious conversation with myself, my board, and many people with whom I respected. And the question was, am I the right person? Am I the right person to be leading Rise Above into the next step? You know, expansion. This idea that we're going to take this organization from a little grassroots nonprofit that helps a very specific community to now possibly a statewide initiative that sees many kids from many communities get help. And I had to ask the question, do I have the capacity to manage something like that, to expand something like that? So that's where Nick, who many of you have met, he's been on stream a couple of times. Hopefully he'll be back on soon. He's invited to come in anytime he feels like it. So, and in his case, you know, when we talk about capacity, sometimes capacity is outside of yourself. Where in building capacity, it's not about, what's up, Vish? Glad you could make it in, buddy. In building capacity, it may not even be that you've built capacity in yourself. It may be that you've taken somebody else and brought them along, and they've been the extra capacity. Yeah, no problem, Luke. So in other words, your greatest contribution may not be something you do, but somebody you raise. Yeah, I can see it, Luke. No problem, buddy. In other words, so in ancient cultures, and even to some degree in some cultures today, a family's capacity to survive very often was on the offspring that were had. So it could be, you know, in Egypt and in places in Mesopotamia and all those sorts of things. How many boys you had determined how successful your family was going to be. It determined how many livestock you could have, how big your farm could be, all that stuff. whereas girls were used as collateral. And I hate to say it, but that's the reality of those times. They were chattel to be sold off to another family, and that would generate, okay, I'll trade you my daughter for 9 animals or an acre of land or whatever it might be. So your children were your capacity back then. So in order for me to have the capacity to have hundreds of camels or hundreds of cattle or 1,000 acres or whatever the acreage is that was reasonable back then, it really was dependent on my capacity to have kids. So again, your greatest contribution, maybe not what you do, but who you raise. Some families in Malta, where my family are from, do arranged marriages, bring a rich. Yeah, that's again that is a way of building capacity outside of yourself. So if you yourself don't have the ability to raise money, you find ways outside of you to do that. In those times, and even today, people do things to make that type of thing happen. Because this is the reality, and this is where Rise Above is born out of. This idea of that great things happen, and this is your message. This is for you. The idea that great things happen when people do uncomfortable things. You follow what I'm saying? Things change when you do things that aren't comfortable. Again, I think trust, obedience, challenge, change, growth. You got to get to growth, you got to go through challenge and change. Those are 2 very hard things. Great things happen when great people do uncomfortable things. Be uniquely better. Right? Close-minded people do close-minded things. Holy crappy nappy. See what I did there? Crappy nappy. I rhymed. Pick me. I rhyme. Thank you, Nappy. I owe you some push-ups. Go to Dono Cam in just 2 seconds as soon as I finish this thought. So you be uniquely better. This idea of close-minded people do close-minded things. If you don't think, get back to this personalization, it's my fault. Pervasiveness, everything I do is bad. I can't do anything right. In performance, it doesn't feel like it will ever stop or go away. That breeds close-mindedness. In the moment you think that what is in here is the best that's going to happen, know this, you're right. You're only ever going to do what you allow your mind to think you can do. You've got to be willing to stretch your mind and get into a place. All right. I got to do a Dono Cam for Nappy, and then I got to do one later on for when Andy gets back. So we'll go over to Dono Cam. Give me 2 seconds. And we're going to play Let's Get Ready to Rumble. See if we can hear it. Okay, I owe Nappy 20 push-ups. Give me 2 seconds. Going to Dono Cam.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. It's time!
I always want to do the whoa, my mic tried to beat me up again. I've got new what are those things called? Shock mounts coming from my microphones, because the ones I've got on here are too light, and so the spring is too tense on this. So that's why you always see me holding my mic. I always want to come back from like one of those screen transitions and be like pretending to pick my nose or something. I just can't bring myself to do it. Thank you for the subs, Nappy. So everyone that is now a part of the gym, thanks to Nappy's generosity. Luke, Miss Carillo, Vish. Oh yeah, Vish, you're here, buddy. Nice. Selt Brunny and Silo EU. Welcome to the gym. Don't forget Thursday's leg day. I will kick your butt. Don't skip leg day. All right. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Great things happen when you do uncomfortable things. Because the reality is, very often people will do things like, well, you know, I'm not going to do XYZ because, you know, just XYZ is stupid anyways. They make up reasons as to why they can't. You know, I'm not going to the gym. I don't want to look like those big hulky guys anyways. You know, they look silly. Or, you know, I'm not going to do, I don't know, go get a degree in physics because, you know, I what am I ever going to use physics for? I don't know. You make it up. The idea there is that people will very often criticize things, A, that they don't understand, but also at the same time, because they don't know how else to say, I'm scared. They don't know how else to say, it's fear. Goes back to the past 2 weeks. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Silo. It's this idea of it's way easier to do stuff that makes you feel comfortable than it is to bring about any sort of change, even when you know that you need to change. And that's exactly, that's a great point. Very often people will pigeonhole themselves into a spot out of fear of the change, simply because they don't want to feel uncomfortable. So let's see what else. So here's another thing that gets in the way of this idea of building capacity. And it's this idea of injustice. What's injustice to you? When I say that there is injustice in the world, what pops into your mind? So I have a phrase that I have used for years when it comes to injustice that I have found to be very indicative of the people that I typically hear say, oh, that's just not right. That's not fair, or whatever the case may be. And that is that I believe that injustice prevails where hopelessness persists. I'll say that again. I believe that injustice prevails where hopelessness persists. And that's where an organization like Rise Above and Nappy, you're looking at the nonprofit world right now. What I will say to you, no matter what you get into, have a keen ear to hear where people are talking about injustice. Because where there is perceived injustice, whether it's actual or not, it's irrelevant. Where there is perceived injustice, there is going to be some form of long-standing, persistent hopelessness. Hear this now. Think of yourself, anybody, your own being. Think of all the places where you think that there is some form of injustice. Very likely, you are going to also have the same sense around this topic of hope, this idea of hopelessness. You're going to look at that and go, well, there's just no, I can't even bother. I can't even change what's going on because there's just injustice. It's big. In other words, it's bigger than me. I don't have the capacity to deal with that. That literally is what everybody said when Veronica and I said we were going to start Rise Above. When we had the idea and we told people, hey, we're going to go do this thing. It's called Rise Above, and this is what we're going to do with these school kids. Literally, everybody we mentioned it to that had any experience with it at all, including the schools, said, that's impossible. You can't do that. Hopelessness. They had literally bought into the lie that there was nothing they could do. They didn't think that their community, this community, had the capacity or could even build the capacity to do this level of work, let alone have a community that would be willing to support it. Thanks for the host, Vishnu. Appreciate that very much. So now listen to this now. So here we are 4.5 years into this, and guess what we got on Friday? I left work. It was 3 o'clock. I get to the gym. I'm just got done changing. I'm literally chalking my hands, getting ready to start lifting weights. Actually, sorry, it was Thursday afternoon. And I get a phone call. My phone rings. And it's the executive director, CEO of a local credit union, of which I am on the board for. And she is also on the board for another organization in town. And this organization was looking to give out $160,000, $180,000, somewhere in that range, to organizations. So I put our name in, and I asked for a very generous portion of that funding opportunity. And I get a phone call on Thursday, and it's her telling me, Neil, congratulations. You just got approved for over $90,000 in grant funding. That's crazy. So here you had a community that said that's impossible. This community does not have the capacity to deal with that population. To now, we have shown the community that not only do you have the capacity to do it, but you actually have the expertise. So this gets back to great things happen when people do uncomfortable things, being uniquely better. So now this community has learned that, yes, that was a hard thing to do. It was uncomfortable to look this subject straight in the face, that we have these expelled kids that bring guns to school, beat up teachers, whatever it might be. I always use the far-flung extreme. Sometimes it's just kids that just don't fit in to the traditional model. And we've shown them that there is something that we can do with them. As one superintendent once said, I used to only be able to say good luck and give them a handshake. Now, he says, now I have something that I can offer them. We've made something that's very unique and very much better than anything that's ever been done for this population in the past. And so now we've built the capacity for people to believe that I can do this. We can do this. They can do this. And so that's why we get phone calls that say, hey, congratulations. You're going to get at least $90,000 from us. We could get as much as $94,000. And I have 3 other grants possibilities, totaling over $210,000. $225,000 if all are fully funded by the end of January. That's crazy to me. From a community that not that long ago didn't think that they had the capacity to do this work. So now not only are they doing it, but now they're asking me to duplicate it. So this gets back to what I was saying about my capacity. Not that long ago, I had an issue where I didn't think that I was the right person. I strongly questioned whether or not I was the right person to carry this organization forward. That, it might be worthwhile for me to step aside, let somebody with a stronger skill set, maybe, I don't know, somebody better suited for the job to step in, and that I would go about being just an executive member of this team. Thank you, Nappy. I appreciate you, brother. But the realization was, and I had to convince myself again that I could do it, that I have the capacity. The reality was I had to step back, and everybody kept saying, no, you're absolutely. And honestly, Nappy, what they kept saying is your passion alone will carry you forward. And that was my aha moment. But the difference I have versus a lot of our students is very often people have said all along the exact opposite. That no, you're just a bad kid. You just don't have the capacity. You're not good enough, right? And that's very often whether that was actually what was said or not. That's what students are hearing. You're not good enough. You'll always be that way. Whereas for me, I have the exact opposite of encouraging people around me, right? And so what we do, and I just said this to a student last week, is we want to be that encouraging person for them as long as possible. That's part of the 4 pillars of relationship we hold for kids society, that we believe our relationship should endure. And the reason for that is we want to continue to be an encouragement. Whether it's getting that first job and helping somebody with a resume, or being the person that helps them get back to school, or being a reference letter for them to go to college or university, or whatever it might be. It's the idea there is that at some point you're going to struggle, and we want to be in a place where we can help you to build your capacity to overcome whatever that struggle is. Because I can't remember who said it. There's a phrase, and I've got it written in front of me here. It says, nothing is gained by not knowing what your people are dreaming about. So, all of you at some level, whether you have kids, a spouse, co-workers, siblings, parents, whatever it is, all of you at some point are going to be in a position where you can help somebody else increase their capacity. And in order to do that successfully, in other words, in order to help somebody else increase their capacity, which is what we do every day here at Rise Above, is we help our students increase their capacity to manage their lives, to cope with the stress that they have, because we can't take the stress away. That stress is going to stay. We can mitigate some, we can alleviate some in the sense of the school pressure they feel, because in the skills that we give them and how we teach them to manage. But we can't really necessarily fix their home life, right? But one of the things that we need to do in order to help them build capacity is we need to have the conversation with them of what are you trying to do? Again, nothing is gained unless I ask, what are you dreaming about? Yeah, so Vish, if I want to help you get a job, how am I ever going to help you get a job if I never ask you what kind of job are you wanting? If I don't understand your personality, because if I know, if you want to get into tool and die, say, and I happen to know a ton of people in tool and die, if I don't ever ask you what you're going to want, I may try and plug you into sales, or I may, or retail or something. Who knows what I'm going to try and plug you into? But again, that's part, and again, one of the 4 pillars of relationship that we struggle with, that we focus on here at Rise Above, is this idea that we believe we should share our relationships. My goal is to introduce you to people that can help build your capacity, that can help you meet your goals, and then set new ones. In order for me to help you build your capacity, I have to also understand what it is that you're dreaming about. because that's what your dreams are, right? I'm not talking dreams in the sense of when you go to sleep at night and you have dreams. I'm talking about, oh, I just wish one day I could blah. Yeah, Luke, Nappy's still here as far as I know. Right? You have to know what is the grand dream of a student. So very often, for us anyways, the reality for our students is a lot of them dream of being professional athletes. Now we know that the vast majority of students who have that dream aren't going to make it, because both of my boys said one day they were going to be professional soccer players. My boys are good, but I don't believe they're that good. But my oldest son is an example of when I heard your dream. So what do we need to do? And that's the question we ask. Okay, so we have to talk about capacity. So right now, you're not a professional athlete. What do we need to do to get you to be at that level? Okay, so that means we have to practice more. My youngest son just said to me yesterday, I'm sitting watching football, watching my Detroit Lions lose again. Can't believe I just admitted that. And he came downstairs and he had one of those little like toy soccer balls, those smaller ones that you get. They're like souvenir types. And he gets down the bottom of the stairs and he's juggling the ball down the stairs and into the living room, back and forth on his foot. And he goes, "This is crazy. I can't believe no matter what I put on my foot, I think it's awesome that I can juggle it. I never would have thought I could juggle anything that I put on my foot." And it struck me. And I said to him, "Buddy, do you remember just a couple of years ago when you used to get upset with me when I'd make you go in the backyard and practice every day for 1 hour on juggling your soccer ball?" He's like, "Yeah, I remember. I hated it, but I'm so thankful you did, because look, I can juggle anything now." And he literally picked a napkin up off the table because I just had some pizza. He crumpled it up and he started juggling the napkin in front of me. He goes, "Oh, I should make a YouTube channel where the challenge is almost like, will it float? The question is, will it juggle? And I just thought there's a perfect example of this idea of building capacity and understanding someone's dream, taking the time to ask the question, what do you want? You'd watch that? I encouraged him to do it. So he's got a GoPro and everything else. He can do it. Right? In my job, as I said earlier, it takes courage to stay hopeful. My job was to keep encouraging him every day. He'd go out there, "I can only juggle 10, Dad." Okay, now get out there. Just focus on your right foot and just get up to 50 this time. Okay, now you got to 50, get up to 100. Okay, now you got to 100, now start going back and forth, left to right. And the challenge there was just to make him believe. You start with juggling a computer monitor. Ow. Juggle a steel toe boots on. My job in that, because I knew he had the capacity to do it. He had the physical ability and all that kind of jazz. I heard his dream. Now my job was just to keep encouraging him and keeping him hopeful that he could attain a dream. So Nappy, take you for example in your desire to transition your life from one world to the other. My job is, as someone who is in the world you're aiming for, to keep you encouraged, to say to you, "Yeah, brother, you can absolutely do this." Man, there are people that are dying for people like you to come into this world and to be that somebody for them. To be the someone that's going to say, "Hey, I hear your dream and I want to help you by encouraging you and helping to build your capacity." Because that's what we do. That is literally my all day, every day. I'm an encourager. And sometimes a little bit of sitting Shiva, it's called, where I just sit quietly with people. And I hear them. Sometimes I just hear them breathe. But you're available. So the first thing you got to do is to, Luke, I'm telling you, this is the thing. I say the same thing to you I say to Vish. If you guys want to move to the States, I'll get you a job literally in 24 hours. Come on over. Offer stands. I'd have you a job making a living wage with benefits and educational bonus. I know a lot of folks. Yeah. And I'm not even joking when I say stuff like that. I absolutely would connect you. Then it would be your job to keep it. So, because very often when we see somebody that is hopeless, it's discouraging. It's upsetting to us. We say to each other that, oh yeah, oh, I can't believe Jimmy just, he lost the job again. Oh, that guy is, I can't believe that guy can't hold a job and like save his life, blah, blah, blah. It can be frustrating. We get to a point where we just tolerate them. I'm just going to, I can't stand being around that guy, but because I have to, I just tolerate him. Very often that's what happens with our students here. And this is probably the best example I can give you because it's real world and it's practical. A lot of students come to us because schools have tolerated their behavior. The problem with toleration is you get to a point where you can't anymore. Your capacity to tolerate them is exceeded. And so what happens is you explode. And you generally have a fight, or in a school's case, you expel the student. You kick them out. I just can't. We can't have you come to school every day and throw things at the teacher or swear at the teacher or whatever it is. Where we differ in our capacity with students who struggle is we don't just tolerate. And listen to me now, because this is important, especially if you've got kids, is we don't just seek to tolerate the behavior. We seek to understand where it comes from. You see the difference? So I don't want to know just that you speak out in class or that you are disrespectful to people of authority. I want to understand, or I seek to understand, and sometimes it's hard to get at this, so it takes work. I'm not saying this is easy. But when you seek to understand what brings about the behavior, that's when real change takes place. You want to see somebody's capacity immediately increase to a measurable amount? Ask them why. Stop. And I've told you the story of the employee I had at Coca-Cola, who I was like, egging to fire. Got to the point where I could finally fire him. He did one more thing. And then at the termination hearing, when I sat down to fire him, for some reason, for the first time in the 2 years I had him as an employee, I asked him why. And I watched a grown man cry in front of me and tell me why. And it was about how his wife has been cheating on him. His daughter's pregnant. His son's on drugs. And his world is collapsing. And he just, in the moment of that, he doesn't have the capacity to do the job that he's been hired to do. No, I didn't, Luke. I didn't terminate him. I actually gave him help. I sat him down. I gave him free counseling, marriage counseling for him and his wife, and personal counseling for himself. I gave him 3 months paid leave and created strong expectations for his return. And he was an employee of mine for an additional 3 years after that, after he returned, and ended up being one of the best employees I had working for me at that point. That doesn't mean he was perfect. That doesn't mean he never had a bad day again. But the difference is, at that point, I understood. And so when I saw the behavior that was a trigger for me to suggest termination before, I then was able to pull this employee aside and say, hey, look, what's going on today? Can I help you? Yeah, absolutely. What's that, Nappy? Nappy says, hearing them is so important. That's the problem. People take over instead of, nobody ever gives somebody a chance to talk. right? Listening is probably one of the best skills. If you can learn how to do anything, learn how to listen. Listening will guide how you should talk. Luke, you said you lost your job 4 years ago in June. I started a new job in July and was, yeah. And that's the thing, because the other thing that we're finding nowadays, Miss H, is this idea of talking about tolerating or having patience, is we're all so busy, and it's because of these things, right? There's no downtime anymore. We're expected to respond. Like while I'm sitting here talking to you guys, my phone's been ringing constantly. Like I have probably 3 or 4 messages. You can see all the alerts right there. That's my wife and I. You can see all the phone messages and text messages and everything. Somebody's trying to get a hold of me. And it's important, I'm sure. It needs to be resolved right now, I'm sure. But I build space into my Mondays. Very important space. Hey, Cody. Welcome to the stream, kiddo. And what Rise Above does, and this is a perfect example of this, Rise Above screws with the prevailing rules. The model that's currently out there right now is, I've got to attend to this right now. You can't wait. Yes, you can. And you should. Absolutely. You should stop. And not be so rushed. Think of anything. Welcome back, Andy. You missed everything. You suck. Now you have to watch the VOD. The reality is, I'm just messing with you, brother, that if you don't slow down, you are going to miss it. You're going to appear very tough and very on the ball. But the reality is you're never going to have time to ask somebody what they're dreaming about. You, in your busyness, are going to make the hopelessness worse. You are not going to help anybody build capacity. Why? Because everything's got to be done fast. One of the first things we say to kids when they come in is, slow down, breathe, take a moment and relax. Nobody is going to force you to do anything yet. You understand me? If you have somebody who has no capacity for anything else, and all you do is immediately expect everything to just fall into place, yet, yeah, Cody, it's coming. I'm going to build trust. I'm going to build some obedience in you. And then I'm going to start challenging things to change. That's 100% for sure. But first, slow down. It's the same thing when I bring people into the gym. I literally just, one of my students, go to the gym the other day, and one of my students is at the gym, like, holy crap, what are you doing here? So, I've been coming for a couple of days now, blah, blah, blah. And I said, okay, good. We're going to sit down and we're going to do a workout program on Monday. So last week, we ended up doing it on Friday. We sat down, we did a workout program. And the first thing I said to him is, don't go in there and push the biggest weights that you can push. Slow down. Push little weights. Get your body used to what you're about to do. Perfect the movements that you're going to make. Once you have the technique down, then we'll start really stretching the situation. Then we'll really start pushing. Then we'll start trying to achieve the dreams that you have about how you want to feel, look, and how strong you want to be. Because if you push too hard, too soon, when you have no capacity, you start to do things like personalize. Oh, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. It's my fault. I'm doing it wrong. Where pervasiveness creeps in. Everything I do is bad. I'm just not good enough. and where you think permanence is an issue. I don't feel like you'll ever get better. I'm going to be stuck here the rest of my life. I'm never going to be strong like you or whatever, whoever you're talking to. You understand what I'm saying to you now? I'm going to talk about something else here in a second. How we talk about capacity. There are two different types of people that approach capacity building differently. What's that, Luke? For my current work hunt, I find employers care more for what you can do now than what you can do tomorrow. Yeah, I can't do 30% of the role today, but in 3 years. And there's reality to that. So what you've got to do in the interviewing process is convince them of your capacity. So a lot of employers now like to ask questions like, give me a time when, is a great question that a lot of employers like to ask now. It's very analytical. It's this idea of, I don't want to know what degrees you have anymore. I just want to know that you've experienced this thing before, and tell me how you overcame that, or tell me how you made this thing better by the actions you took, or how you diffused the situations by the actions you took. And so you can demonstrate your current capacity in things that you've done in the past. And then once you've demonstrated your current capacity by things you've done before, right, you can kind of convince them that you are good enough for tomorrow. Again, that's that idea of being able to talk about the uncomfortable things that you've done in the past and how you're great now because of it. Right? Okay. So what was the other thing I was going to talk about? Oh, early and late adopters. Who's heard of this term before? Oh, he's an early adopter or a late adopter. Who's heard this term? I'd be curious if he was still here. I know he's not, but if he was here, if he's heard of that term before. Nappy, you have? Yeah, given your background, I'm sure you have. So in tech, yeah, absolutely. So I use Coca-Cola as a prime example. So Coca-Cola, when I came in, was very antiquated, used a lot of paper and pencil type things to get orders out the door and all that kind of stuff. And so you're an early adopter of early adoption. Well, that's good. And so when I came in, the first thing I did, because of my background, is I'm a very tech-based kind of guy. I said, hey, there's a way that we can be much more efficient, make better use of our space in the floor, and make our orders get fulfilled a lot faster. And this was this technology thing. So what I did was I introduced them to new tech. Some people are like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I really want to do that. And then there are others who sit back and they kind of just watch. I'm not sure. I've never dealt with that before. I'm not familiar with technology, or especially that technology. I'm always kind of skeptical when we start introducing automation to our programs or processes and blah, blah, blah. And we refer to those people as late adopters. Late adopters are people who need evidence. Show me. Whereas early adopters are more intuitive. They tend to be people who are just like, yep, I get it. Let's go. I'm an early adopter. In most cases. Late adopters tend to be skeptics. And there's nothing wrong with either one of those. There's just different approaches that you need. So when we talk about capacity, you need to understand who's who. You need to understand, are you somebody that when I suggest something to you, you're going to be like, yep, okay, I trust you. So if you say to do this thing, I'm just going to do it. Or are you somebody that when I suggest something, you're going to go, I trust you, but I've never actually seen you do that. Or I've never seen somebody else use that thing that you're asking me to use. So I'm not sure. So there's different approaches that you have to take to each of these individuals. And Nappy, I'd be curious to hear of a time and a place when you've had examples of this and how you've overcome each of them. But I have found, particularly with late adopters, it's experiential. They either need to see somebody else do it, or they themselves need to put their hands on it and see and feel and taste that it works. Right? What's that, Andy? The company I work for have the worst mentality. They constantly say that No, we don't need that. We have. Yeah, so we call that old school, the old school mentality. This idea that no, we've always done it this way. It works. They think that by change we're going to break something, right? That's why you have test fields. You don't just okay, today we're going to do it this way, and tomorrow we're going to do it completely different. So that's just poor management on their part. You have one right now, Nappy? Yeah, I'd be curious to hear. And I mean, obviously, I would think that it even probably relates to kind of the transition that you're in. Yeah, Luke, doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of companies out there that have, especially like 100-year-old companies that have just been plugging out the same things over and over and over again. And, they have no desire or need to change. Some of it's nostalgic, especially a family-run business. It takes a very exceptional organization that is willing to step into large-scale or wholesale organizational change. And I mean, if Rabbi Ferret was here, he'd be all over this topic. So the company I work for had our own custom-made quoting tool that was deployed for over 15 years. Management decided to move to Microsoft Dynamics, which is common. The company I work for, yeah. What's that, Andy? The company I work for, I turned to, yeah. So, I mean, in some cases, you don't need to change. So if you're making oak barrels, you may not need to change because maybe that's the beauty of your product is that it is made a very particular old style way. And to get the best wine or whatever you're making in the barrel, you have to make it that old school way. But particularly when you talk about the tech world or the service industries or like Coca-Cola, if you stay antiquated, all you're going to do is drive the cost of your product higher than the value that it presents to the consumer. And you're going to allow your competitors to outpace you. A great example of this was Kodak. So if anyone's familiar with the story of Kodak, when digital cameras came out, or before digital cameras came out, Kodak had like nearly 100% of the market when it came to cameras. When the digital camera came out, they were presented with the opportunity to launch the first digital camera. As a matter of fact, they helped to develop the process. What happened is they said it'll never catch on. What's up, Poggy? And so they didn't adopt it. They were late adopters when it came to the digital system, and it nearly killed the company. They came within a hair's breadth of losing Kodak. This large, multi-billion dollar multinational company almost went under. Blockbuster is another great example of that. What's that, Luke? I'm getting a little behind in chat. I apologize. You have your own business doing family history that I run. That's not where profitability is not one thing. Yeah, and that's especially in accounting, because I mean, the accounting practices you're always looking for productivity improvements, right, Luke? Nappy, so we hired a programming firm to come in and help customize Dynamics to our needs. As part of the team helping them build. Yeah, and I got asked to do that a lot in the organizations I was with where because I'm an early adopter and very much somebody who pushes new tech and that sort of stuff for organizational improvements, I very often, like you, Nappy, got pulled into those conversations and was part of those early adoption meetings. Yeah, and a lot of people do want out of the box and not customize because it's easier, it saves money, and it's less work for them. Specifically when the customization is on their dime, which a lot of these contracts are written that any customization has to be done within their scope. So. Yeah, and Andy, see, Blockbuster had a specific market. So you actually brought up Blockbuster too. That's funny. Blockbuster had an opportunity as well to get into the digital world and to be, because they had branding. They were branded as the place to go to for movies. And so if they played their cards right, they could have easily transitioned their VHS or DVD market over to a digital world. It would have been nothing for them because they already had the market. They already had the millions and millions of subscribers who came and rented movies, who would have easily and happily transitioned over to the digital format, which obviously everybody did because, I mean, Netflix, you name it. I mean, all the platforms. It's what everybody has done. So I know we're talking about business capacity, right? We're talking about both, Jamod, so feel free. Test my capacity limits. I applied for a nursing assistant program over the weekend. Oh, congratulations. So I'll be starting that really soon. Second shift jobs. Yeah, you're really going to be pushing. So this is what I found, Jamod, when I, as a late 30s, went back to school and got my degree in the area that I was studying. And it really stretched my, again, because it was out of my comfort zone. I really had to learn how to be slow to speak in some instances and get to a place where I had to know my limits. And it wasn't that to know your limits, play within them type of phrase. It wasn't that I had to learn them so that I knew what I could only go to this point. I did know my limits, so I knew how to focus to get better. So for you, in order to decrease the stress of going back to school, you may now want to start learning how to take good notes again. If you're not already, even if you are a good note taker, you may want to go and just do some brush up on shorthand or some other form of note taking, or do what I did, because I was never a good note taker. So what I did to expedite my writing and my note taking is I got a piece of software called Dragon Naturally Speaking. And a lot of you may have heard of this software. And I can only type probably 40 words a minute-ish, pretty average, pretty low average, I would say, for most kids nowadays, especially some of the kids. I mean, you're watching some early teens doing more than 40 words a minute. But with Dragon Naturally Speaking, it gave me the ability instantly to type 200 plus words a minute. As fast as I could talk, that sucker would type. And I can talk fast. But before I forget, congratulations on applying for nursing. I assume you're set to start that semester in the new year. So Dragon Naturally Speaking still exists, and it's a software that if you have to write big papers, and that was my thing. I was writing 40, 50 pages a week of response to the readings, to the 1,000 plus pages of readings that I had to do every week, and so I was always typing, reading, typing, reading, typing, reading, typing. So I would just do really shorthand, one sentence reminders of what I want to talk about, and then I would sit down and I would just start talking. And my computer would literally write out all my papers for me, and then I'd just go back and edit and add lines in and whatever else. What's that, Luke? Fact check myself. I was 50 million, not 300 million in Blockbuster. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that whole Blockbuster thing because Netflix offered. And, well, you know what happened there. Yeah, and Dragon is huge in the medical field, and there's a specific Dragon Naturally Speaking for the medical field. Yep. Yeah, in honesty, Cody, that is the epitome of capacity. So, because very often people will put on this blinders. This is our little hole. This is only what we can do. This is only what I'm capable of. I can't do that. And that might have been the CEO's at Blockbuster's mindset is we are not a digital company. We are a brick and mortar, VHS, DVD, whatever the case is, organization. We can't do that. The reality is they had the capacity to do it. They actually were very close to having almost the full infrastructure to do it. But it was a mindset. They didn't have the courage to do it. What else do I want to talk about? Let's see. All right. So when we talk about this idea of rise above messing with the prevailing rules, before we got into this whole Netflix Blockbuster thing, I said rise above messes with the rules of the prevailing model. This idea that we look a lot like school. We sometimes feel a lot like school, but when you get in here, we ain't nothing like school. Matter of fact, traditional school is the first thing we chuck out when things get, hairy. Why? Because education, math and science, gets in the way of everything we just talked about. If I want you to focus on math and science and the quiz, I am not going to be in a position to ask you, what do you want to do? What are you dreaming of? Are you okay? It's not going to put me in a position where I can ask you what your capacity is to do what it is that I'm asking you to do. Do you understand that I don't want you to do this anymore, or that I need you to do this thing, or that this is good for you, or that this is bad for you? Do you understand? I'm not in a position to ask you those questions, let alone ask you those questions and then help you think through how you're going to achieve the answers. You have to be willing to mess with, and this is how we got on the whole business topic that Jamo was talking about, getting away from the personal side of things. That's how if we aren't willing to mess with the rules, because Nappy, you're a prime example right now. There is nobody outside of me, maybe nobody besides me, that said to you, when you said you were going to quit your very good job that you've had for 25 years to go into the nonprofit world, there's almost nobody, I guarantee, that was close to you that said that that's a great idea. I'd be curious to know if anybody said to you, oh, you're going to quit your job? That's a great idea, Nappy. You should do that. Your therapist said, yeah, because she knows. She's had the time to listen to you. A therapist is slow to speak. That's precisely what their job is. She knew what you needed because she listened to you. She had understanding. Doesn't surprise me. The trick then is to become a therapist in a world that helps people like you came out of. Right? So this is the thing, Nappy. This is what I found. I did it by accident. I didn't do it intentionally, but you're in a spot where you can do it intentionally. You have the ability to look at your life now, because you're doing it very intentional, and say, I'm leaving the corporate world to go into the nonprofit world to help others build capacity, because that's what you're doing. You're looking to go into a place where you can help others build capacity. In what area am I expertly placed to help others build capacity? If that's therapy, then it'd be therapy. But I would say to you this, what particular type of therapy? Because there's different types. Is it corporate therapy? Does it have something to do with relationships specifically, around marriages or youth? So in hindsight, for everybody, this idea of helping others to build capacity, because again, this isn't necessarily about self-help. Building capacity isn't a selfish thing. I'm talking to you about building capacity today because if you build capacity in yourself, it will immediately affect those people around you. Building capacity in you automatically builds capacity in others. Why? Because now you have the breath to relax and to take the time to then hear somebody else and to hear their dreams. If you haven't taken the time to build capacity in yourself, you're not going to be in a position to build capacity in others. And that's precisely what I believe NAPI is trying to do. Luke needs a plane ticket. Anybody? Anybody. Luke needs a plane ticket. Laura is a therapist, counselor, and it pains me to say she's nearly always right about the decisions she makes. You're very impulsive, make decisions on the fly. Laura will calculate everything out and think about things before making decisions. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. I've watched your streams, Andy. I don't know if, I'm, I probably have some clips I could play for you. Diablo, welcome back, buddy. 3 months. You are awesome. Thank you for popping in. Thank you for recommitting to the gym. It's good to see you here, man. Hope you had a great weekend. That's exactly what you're working on, Nappy. Yeah, doesn't surprise me at all. Because I mean, if you're at work and you're stressed out every day, I mean, whether it's for family, friends, even your coworkers, you can't. Just over a year ago, yeah, Andy, ask away, buddy. Just over a year ago, I was like 40% in debt, but in the stable job, now I'm unemployed, but debt free. That's good. That's huge. Being debt free is huge. Yeah, but the gym I refer to is the physical gym, not necessarily the mental gym that we exercise. See, this is the mental gym where we exercise and stretch our minds a little bit. We're not. I mean, I'm the only one that does any sort of physical activity. I mean, Miss H was cooking earlier, but I'm just saying, I'm referring to the movement of weights when I say welcome to the gym. I spend 2 hours at the gym every Monday. Atta boy. Go get her, Andy. I'm sure that'll pay huge dividends for you. Oh, and by the way, I hope you're feeling better today, Andy. I hope you've had a good restful weekend. Yeah, no problem, Diablo. You lurk away, man. I totally get that. I'm just I'm thankful that we're able to have this chat today. Okay, so I'm going to cover one more big kind of personal thing that you need to kind of focus on yourself for any of this to work, for any of this to kind of make sense. And again, know that this does not come from any one source. None of this stuff I ever talk about will rarely come from a single source. A lot of it is a collection of years of thinking and ruminating on my part, where I've just seen with literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of employees that I've had, and now the hundreds of students that we've interacted with, what has borne the most fruit. And a lot of this stuff, like the 4 pillars of relationship, my coach model that I refer to. So the 4 pillars of relationships come first, relationships endure, relationships are different for everybody, and relationships are meant to be shared. right? That's what, the other one is the coach model, which is trust, obedience, challenge, change, growth, which then cycles back and comes back to trust. These are my things. This doesn't come out of a book anywhere. And it's the same with this one. So when we talk about capacity, I'm going to introduce something else now that I think is integral to building capacity, whether it's in yourself from a self-help standpoint or in the group from a group help standpoint. So if you're a team lead at work, if you're a family member and you're a mom or dad or guardian of whoever, these are things that I believe if you are a person helping somebody build capacity or yourself working on capacity, that you have to demonstrate before you can put yourself in a position to build capacity. I hope that made sense because I rambled for a good minute there. So these are 5 things that I believe you have to demonstrate before you can affect capacity in yourself or in others. The first is humility. Before you start thinking about building capacity in yourself, you have to be willing to say to yourself, I'm limited. Or I need more capacity. I can be better. Right? You have to be willing to say, I'm not perfect. You have to have the humility to say, this is not the final product, and I know that. And again, I always bring up how the best thing you can do, and we talked about this thing with change the other day, the best thing you can do is to gather around you people, we called them your army, who will encourage you to victory. Those people who will be brutally honest with you and say, you are correct. That is not the best version of you that you can have. And then have the humility to say, yes, I believe you're right. Humility, number 1. Then once you have decided, I have the humility, and you start listening to not only yourself, but those around you who are saying, these are the ways that we can improve, you then have to seek out understanding. That's number 2. Okay, so I've established that I want to get there, that is my dream, that is my goal. That I, like Jimode was saying, she wants to go to nursing school. She has a goal. Now she has to become a person of understanding, someone who says, okay, this is what it's now going to take to get there. I realize I want to be better, humility, and now this is what I know I need to do to get better. Whether it's your stream that you're doing, Andy, you're looking for ways to improve your stream. I think your stream's amazing, but so right now, in order for my certain aspects of my stream to be better, I have to improve my computer. I have to get a better computer. So you're doing things, you understand that. So now the next step is you're going to do things to make it happen. Jimode knows that she has a passion for, a joy of nursing. So she's going to go get a degree that enables her to do that. Nappy realizes his gift mix and his heart's desire is not just to show up to work every day in his little cubicle and do his thing, but his heart's desire is now to, as he demonstrates so often in his stream, is his desire now is to go and to help others. He's realized that is his passion. So now he's got the humility to realize, hey, I got to get out of this world and get into another world. He's now understood what it's going to take to get there. So he's doing things like working on a resume and all that kind of stuff. And then once he realizes what he needs to do, once he understands what he needs to do, all of us then have to have the number 3, which is the openness, the willingness to then do those things. Understand what I'm asking you and saying to you. This is the part where the word sacrifice comes in. So I can have the humility to say, I'll use Luke's example of debt. So I can have the humility to say that I need to improve my spending habits. I know that I spend unwisely. As a matter of fact, I sat down the other day, this is my understanding, I sat down the other day and I wrote out what I spend. And I wrote out how much debt I have. So now I have an understanding of the things that are making this either effective or ineffective. Now I have to have the willingness, the openness to step into that and to actually do the things that I need to do, to sacrifice. Okay, so I'm not going to eat out every night. I'm not going to go to the movie theater 3 times a week and see the latest movies. I'm going to start making my own meals at home and bringing a lunch to work instead of going to whatever restaurant in town, whatever pub for lunch. And so you make plans and you start sacrificing those things that you know were part of the things that hindered your capacity. Hey, Morgmane, glad you could make it in, kiddo. And once you realize you have the ability here to get to your goal, so you've sat down, you understand what you need to do, or you know what you need to do, you understand it. In other words, you've thought about it, you've written it out, you get it. And then you have the openness, you've sat down, okay, I'm willing to sacrifice. The fourth one is respect. And so listen to me now. So I wrestle with this word respect because it can be a couple of different words. Respect can mean trust. Matter of fact, I do believe it means trust. Respect can mean I understand, or I don't need to understand everything. I'm giving some control over. Because very often when we go about building capacity, that means we have to relinquish something. And when you get to a point of respect and you're willing to relinquish some level of control in process, that's when you're willing to take your hands off and get to step 5, which is to listen and obey. Humility, understanding, openness, respect, listen and obey. Listen and obey is when the real capacity building happens. Are you with me? When you get to the point where you can sit there because you respect now the process or the person that has the process. In Nappy, your therapist is a prime example of this. She is somebody whom walks you through this process to where she is going to make suggestions to you, or he, I'm making an assumption there, to where you're going to listen to her and you're going to obey her suggestions. This is one of the hardest things for most of us to do, especially now. This was normal not long ago, where respect was readily given to people of authority, teachers, police, fire, parents, all of that stuff. But as society has changed more and more towards, and I harp on this stupid thing, but it's true. There's a reason why we don't allow these inside rise above. They're drama makers. They're not cell phones. They're drama makers. As soon as we became a cell phone world, we lost all respect. Why? Why did we lose all respect? Why do professors no longer just teach a subject and students busily write it down? And why does more and more students no longer listen to their parents? Don't even get me on why is suicide on the rise? Yeah, I fully believe that, Nappy. It has to do with the fact that we are turning into a very selfish, self-serving society. And here, I'm gonna qualify something. I'll get you back to the thing we started with, this idea of just because you can watch a YouTube video doesn't make you an expert. We think now, because we have so much information at our fingertips. There's an iPhone commercial right now, an Apple commercial that talks about this. They say you have more personal information now at your fingertips on your phone than you do in your whole house. That's what they say. I don't know whether that's how factual that is, but the fact that they say that. And so we've become self-reliant, which means we have zero humility. If you have zero humility, none of the other steps are going to happen. You never get out of the starting blocks because you have too much access. Now, I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying that I wish all cell phones would go away. What I'm saying is we've given it too much authority over our lives. And we've given it too much clout. But we think that because we have this, we are experts. As Luke was saying, that because I can look up a recipe, that doesn't make me Gordon Ramsay. And because I can look up a recipe and very often think that because I can look it up that I am Gordon Ramsay, I have no humility. And when you have no humility, you can never get to a spot of listening and obeying. And if you can never cross that bridge, you will never build more capacity than you already have. You will be stuck. Questions on that? Because that's you really have to cross a bridge to get there. It's not to me. It's not a big bridge. Again, every day I fight this idea, and I'll tell you how chaotic and crazy this plays out. Before starting Rise Above, I never realized how fake a lot of the information on here is. You know why I say that? I can't tell you how many students have said things about Illuminati to me in the past 5 years. And about these secret cities underneath New York and Washington, where all these crazy men get together and they formulate how the world is going to run, and that there's really truly only one government that runs the entire world. And it's like, what are you talking about? The reality is they watched a YouTube video. And so that made them an expert. And because there's a YouTube video, it must exist. There's no discernment. And when you develop that, so listen to me. Originally, computers, when they came out, were all really given to higher end academics. Slowly but surely, over the years, what's happened with technology? Technology has gotten more and more accessible to younger and younger and younger people. And the younger you get onto this stuff, the more likely you are to be convinced. that you are an expert. Why? Because I've been using this since I was 2 years old. Crying out loud, jump on the subway sometime. Go to an airport. Watch how many 3 and 4 year olds know how to run their mom's phone better than the mom. That's crazy. And with that level of access, and again, nothing wrong with it. The problem is it's not explained properly. Parents think it's just great. Go watch your cartoons. Go watch your YouTube videos. The idea there is when they do that, though, they have no understanding of the information they're taking in. And when you have no understanding, there is no openness. Again, follow the steps: humility, understanding, openness, respect, listen, obey. If you have no understanding of the actual validity of the information you're taking in, there is no openness. And this is why we have a country like America that's so divided right now politically, because there is no understanding. And Andy, this is what you kept quoting on stream. Because they have no understanding of the actual facts, there is no openness to new ideas. Right or wrong, I'm not advocating for one over the other. I'm just saying, if you have no if you only ever get your information from one source, listen to me, you have no understanding. And you demonstrate consistently that you have no openness. Could you imagine me doing my job if I was never open to a different point of view? There'd be 2 kids here. We would see 2 kids a year because I'd only ever bump into 2 kids that met my personality criteria because I am such a far-flung, crazy dude. There's not many people like me, thank God. Your 2.5-year-old's better than fruit. That's funny. That's where it starts. Next to be flat earthers. Truth. All right, well, I'm not laughing anymore. That's reality there. Could you imagine? I think those conferences are hilarious. I can't tell you how many like hidden camera things I've watched of flat earth conferences. And Jimod, you're right on, and that's the whole crux of this is thinking if you already think that you're at your personal best, you will literally never get better. You can regress, but you'll never get better. But again, Andy, I guarantee you, if you can be super intelligent, again, that's that thing. You can have tons of knowledge, but no understanding. So there is somebody in engineering who has all respect to engineers. But I say the same thing about people that have doctoral degrees. They are exceptionally brilliant people. But they know an awful lot about one thing. One thing. They have spent their whole life only focusing on one thing. And the joke in my house is I never listen to a person with a doctor in front of their name give me their advice on anything but what they have their doctorate in. So I'm not going to listen to you about politics. I'm not going to listen to you about how to fix my car. I'm going to listen to you about what you wrote your doctorate degree in. That's it. Shema, what'd you say? It wasn't a joke. I know people who are interested in silly conspiracy theories. And for funsies, I would actually legitimately yeah. Boggles my mind. You can have that much knowledge or knowledge of things and access to knowledge, but yet have zero understanding. That whole flat earth thing just blows my mind. Funsies. Funsies was a marbles term for me when I was a kid. That's where funsies came in. We gonna play for funsies? No keepsies today. That was the old marbles terms. Sticking your heel in the ground, making a hole in the ground, and playing some marbles. Get my Crown Royal bag out that had all my marbles in it. Oh, come on. You know you all did it. That was like the treasure, man. If you got a Crown Royal bag, and now Andy knows what I'm talking about because he looked it up the other day. If you got the Crown Royal bag, man, I'm telling you, you were set. Yeah, the purple bag. You get that purple bag with the gold stitching, man. It was the best marble bag on the planet. My marble bag had capacity. There's a tie-in for you. See, now, Andy, there's two problems with your life. You've never played marbles and you've never seen The Princess Bride. So you have two missions this week, my friend. You go on eBay, you get yourself some marbles. Then you're going to learn how to play some marbles. And then you're going to go on the Netflix or on Amazon and you're going to watch The Princess Bride. It's a cult classic. There you go. That's a kill two birds, one stone type moment right there. Life altering. All right, talk to me about the topic here. What's going on? What are people thinking? Because there's a lot. This is a big topic. I mean, we kind of joked with it a little bit, but if you can't tell, there's some passion in there for me. Because this is the most frustrating thing for me with the students. Is they either get stuck on humility where they think that, oh, I'm already as good as I am. I'm the best. Or they think, no, this is just how I'm always going to be. That's a great, sweet acronym. We got to find a better, maybe we should change the words. And Vish, if you're still here, buddy, I see your whispers. I'll get back to you on those things. Because this is a big topic, and I'm telling you, this is, I think of all the topics that we talk about, this is one of those topics that can, if you can overcome this humility piece, can literally change your life overnight. And usually it comes down to finding somebody that you trust. What is my capacity to talk about capacity? My capacity is pretty high, brother. No memes allowed. Yeah, I'm not afraid to be told I'm wrong, and I'm not afraid to be told that I have room to grow, but I still hate it. I hate being told I'm wrong, and I hate being told I got to get better. It sucks. The reality is none of us like it. Hurol, I think, is probably the best. Rahul. The first one you did is actually the last name of my lawyer, Rahul. Because you have to understand what I'm asking you to do. I'm asking you to intentionally take on pain. And I know I've talked about it once before, but Coca-Cola for me was a prime example of a situation where I wanted feedback. I always got perfect performance reviews. Like if a perfect score was 30, I always got 30. And I always got the best reviews and like the highest score and the most bonus and pay raise and all that kind of stuff. In 1 year, I said to my boss, "What are you doing? You're not helping me." I said, "It's great that you think I'm a great employee." I said, "But there has to be something that I can do better next year for next year's review." It wasn't an issue of discipline me, because Andy, that's a different topic, and this is a PG stream. But the idea there is I want to be better. I want to continually improve. And if you say to me, Neil, you're a 30 out of 30, or Morgan, you're a 30 out of 30, well, you're probably a 35 out of 30, Morg. Best mod ever. Jamode's in there too, I'm not going to lie. The reality is, if I think I'm perfect, I'm not going to look for ways to improve. You're not helping yourself, or you're not helping the person. And this is the culture we're in now, where parents do not discipline their children. And I'm not talking about spanking. I'm not talking about the discipline like go to your room. I'm talking about discipline in the sense of saying to my son, you need to spend an hour in the backyard juggling because I think you can do better. Do you have the discipline to do that? So I believe my kids, so here's how does that bear fruit? My son goes to a smaller private school. It's not that small. It's actually a really nice school. And he takes a 15-passenger van as his bus to school. And he had a new bus driver. And my son and the bus driver got into a political conversation. He's 14. And at the end of the conversation, when my wife picked up my son Asher from the bus driver stopped my wife and said, wow, you have a really intelligent son. And we do. He's a great kid. But the reality is, we as much as he is intelligent, what he was actually saying was not that he's intelligent. Those are the words he chose, but that's not what he meant. What I have is a son who has a lot of humility and openness and has great understanding at 14 how to have mature conversations about sensitive topics like politics. Because the bus driver then said to my wife, wow, he really demonstrated he knows a lot about both sides. That he didn't just say that let's take the political stance right now, that he hates Trump and that Trump should be impeached, or that Hillary's crooked and that she's, killing tons of people. Because that's the thing, everyone claims she's, all these assisted suicides. That he actually gave a strong, rationalized openness with respect, where he demonstrated that he can listen and obey to the other side of the story politically. Now that was... So when we talk about discipline, we're not talking about a spank in the butt. We're talking about, do you have what it takes to slow down and get better? Morgan, you got a lot of feedback. So listen, feedback is good, but was the feedback good to you? Did it? Because there's feedback that attacks where you can improve, and there's feedback that attacks you personally. If it was personal, that's a different conversation, right? But if it's feedback that helps you grow, take that and run with it. Don't take feedback like that personally. It's hard, and I'm not saying that again. I'm not saying it's easy. Humility is one of the hardest things to overcome, because you're obviously and that doesn't surprise me. And I pray that it is always constructive criticism. Yes, I've heard of Gordon Ramsay. Yeah, that's all. I'm glad to hear that it is. See, now Gordon Ramsay, so understand that Gordon Ramsay, what you get from him is an exaggerated version of the reality. So what we see of Gordon Ramsay, the persona that he's created for TV, is not real. It stems from his willingness to be brutally honest with the chefs that he's working with. But the reality is, in America at least, if a chef talked to an employee like that, he wouldn't be in business very long. He'd have so many lawsuits and everything else. That's a made-for-TV persona. But the essence of what he's portraying is honestly the essence of what I portray to my employees, is this strong character who wants the best from his employees and will not accept silly mistakes where you know the legitimate answer, where you're just being lazy. And that is honestly, that's how I've raised my kids, in the sense that there's knowing right from wrong. There's not knowing right from wrong and making a mistake in that, and then learning from your mistake, and then you know right from wrong. But then the expectation is that you have understanding and a willingness, again, there's that understanding, openness, respect, listen, obey, that once you know, that you're then going to respond in kind to that. And Gordon Ramsay's persona that he projects on TV is an exaggeration of that. It's not even comparable to old school, I'm the boss, so you're just going to listen to me type personalities. That was very common in construction trades. And my father is very much that personality, that old school, I'm the boss, so that's why you're going to listen to me. It doesn't matter whether I'm right or wrong. It doesn't matter whether this is based in wisdom, knowledge, or understanding. It's just the fact is, I'm the boss, so you're going to listen for no other reason. That's old school discipline. But if you listen closely to what Gordon Ramsay is doing, he's exaggerating the discipline model that we're talking about. So he doesn't give you crap for making a mistake in the kitchen. He gives you crap for making a mistake in the kitchen when he knows that you are a better chef than that. Right? When he goes into a kitchen in those like Rehab My Kitchen type shows that he's done in the past. And I'll be honest with you, I don't watch TV at all anymore, except for news and sports. But his rehab shows were very much the same way. He would give people crap because they're doing stuff that they know better to not do. Yeah. I'm trying to think where I heard that. Capacity. What is your capacity? The only way you're going to get better is by thinking about this topic and understanding what my capacity is to do what I know is right. And very often, capacity is something that comes about by asking a ton of questions, starting with, what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Where do you want to go? Why do I want to go there? Humility, understanding, openness, respect. Listen and obey. Mess with the rules, as I said earlier. Rise Above messes with the rules of the prevailing model. Do more than just say blindly okay or blindly no. If you want to truly get better, build your capacity to do one thing or multiple things, you have to be willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Jimode, you're about to do that by going back to school. Nappy is doing that by stepping away from his job and moving into a capacity that is very different than what he's used to. He's having to be very open to the process. Right? Some of you might be happy where you're at, and again, that might be okay for your situation and your time. But know that that's great for you, for your self-help. But most of you are not in a position where you only have to worry about you. You are in a position where you have to worry about this idea of group help. This process never stops. It is a process that you continually have to work at. It's like going to the gym. That's why I love the model of Risk Immersed in the gym character, because it applies to every aspect of our life. This idea of when you stop, when you become lethargic, you become ineffective. And it usually takes time. Where if you have injury, whether it's physical or spiritual or emotional, it inhibits your ability to perform. Where when you do exercise properly, whether, again, spiritually, physically, emotionally, you become more effective. It's a great analogy for everything. And that completely includes your capacity. The more you're willing to exercise your level of understanding with openness and respect, the more likely it is that you are to succeed, grow, and become better. Not just you, but those people around you and with whom you touch and interact with daily. Right? One of the, and I'll close with this, because it's been 2 hours. One of the scariest parts of capacity, and one of the biggest inhibitors to building capacity, is a thing called groupthink or shared assumptions. And again, that's that not being open. So you can have humility, you can seek understanding of your current position and what you want to do and where you want to go and all that kind of stuff. But if your openness isn't there, you can even get to respect. But if you're only thinking in that one little silo, if you're not open to other assumptions, to other ideas, again, the best analogy in the U.S. right now is the political world that we're living in. It's crazy. There's so many people that are living in these little silos, and they're so close-minded. You can have the best of intentions, but know that those intentions will go to waste if you don't get out of your assumption. Don't seek understanding. Don't rest in assumptions. Again, that goes back to the question that I was talking about earlier, this idea of nothing is gained by not knowing what people are dreaming about. You have to ask the question. Otherwise, you're assuming. And when you assume, you make mistakes. A lot. Thank you, everybody. Great stream. Great chat. Andy, thanks for your acronyms. Yep. I agree with you 1,000%, Andy. I agree 1,000%, Larry. Yeah, appreciate you guys all very much. Capacity is something that just know that is very personal to me in the season that I'm in right now. And is if you ever see me stressed out on a stream, or quite the opposite, if you ever see me over exuberant, it's because I've probably had a breakthrough somewhere, and it's either kicking me in the butt or it's lifting me up. It has its highs and lows when you're going through this type of thing. And Andy, I owe you some push-ups before we go here, so let's jump over to DonoCam. Oh, speaking of that, you just gave me another 250 bits, buddy. Appreciate you. You're all right. Let's get to DonoCam, give you the 25 push-ups, and then I'll say goodbye to everybody for the day and get you guys over to our traditional raid which is Air Max. So everyone hang tight for me to do while I do the push-ups, and please let me get you over to Air Max so we can bless him with the few of you that are here. Dono Camp, push-ups, back in a second.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening. It's time!
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you, buddy. Yeah, superb form, always. Like I said to you, form first, strength later. Appreciate all you guys. I hope you guys have a blessed Monday. Stay tight with me for a few minutes while I get you over to my buddy Air Max. And, pardon me, he's actually, I think he's doing some, Escape from Tarkov, I think, today, if I'm not mistaken. So, again, appreciate all you guys. Thanks for sticking with me on capacity. It's a hard subject, but something that we all need to work on. So have a great week. Appreciate each and every one of you. For those of you who gifted subs today, Nappy, Diablo resub, Jamode resub, and Andy, thanks for your bits, buddy. Have a great, great day. Say hi to Air Max. Bye for now.